So welcome all of you. I'm so delighted to join you today. I'm going to begin with just an acknowledgement of Nevada County Arts Council, that we stand in solidarity with all of California's indigenous peoples. And we acknowledge that the lands now called Nevada County are on the unceded territory of the Nisenan people, and that they continue to be home to the Nevada City Rancheria tribe. Generations of Nisenan members developed deep understandings of this land, and today those long-standing relationships with the land, the water, air, plant, and animal beings continue through ceremony, culture, and stewardship. We are committed to understanding that the voices of the Nisenan, and in the context of Upstate California Creative Core, the voices of all Indigenous peoples, are primary voices, and to supporting their leadership towards a more just future for everyone. So welcome everyone. You're welcome to say who you are in the chat. And as we go through this, you're also welcome to ask any questions of Genna, and we'll try to pick up on them between Michael and myself. A special call out to Gianna, who's going to wave, and Michael, who are part of our Upstate California Creative Core team. And I'm going to put, yes, and Sophia here. I'm so sorry. I'm going to introduce Genna. Genna, I am putting your incredible resume into the chat. I'm just going to do that. Sorry, I'm really hopeless at doing more than one thing at once.
I feel the same way. I'm always like, I can do one thing at a time as things happen. And I don't feel bad about that, because who says we should be doing more than one thing at a time? Like, breathe and like do the thing that you want to do in the moment that you want to do it.
I know. It's so true, isn't it? Well, Genna, nevertheless, welcome. You are Director of Arts and Economic Prosperity and Community Engagement and Equity at Americans for the Arts. And this is a pretty special moment today. We're going to be talking with you. You're going to be sharing with us a connection that Americans for the Arts has made more than any other previous year when you've done this survey. And this is your 6th national survey, between, the connection between economic and social impacts of the arts. Genna, open to you.
Fantastic. Well, I'm gonna try to share my screen if technology, if all of technology is working in our favor. We never know. It would be great if I could see a thumbs up if that looks normal and right. Okay, fantastic. Yes.
It's great.
So we are here to talk about the economic, I should say first, because over the past 30 years, this was an economic study. And then we shifted to both economic and social impact of nonprofit arts and culture industry as a whole, as the nonprofit arts and culture industry as a whole. And so when we talk about, I talk to so many people, I talk to like arts councils and artists and government officials. And so sometimes my message can be really broad and really specific, but I generally say, these are two of many different types of tools that you can use to advocate for arts and culture, right? So I'm here for the arts for art's sake conversation. I'm here for, just the goodness of arts in general. I also know that sometimes talking about the economic impact and the social impact do different things for that advocacy effort as well. So I just wanted to name that, put that out in the room, that I am not just an economic data talking head. But this is really to get at this study, AEP6 is really to get at to combat the idea of arts being a charity case. We are an industry. We have fundamental benefits that are cornerstones for tourism. They support jobs. We, arts, culture, generate government revenue. And so that's what this is all about. But before I become like a huge data talking head and nerd out on all of you all, I want to make sure that I can kind of follow my own cues. I say I take my cues from the community. And when I say cue, I just mean CUE. It's kind of a little acronym for connection. And if not connection, because it's not always going to be connection when you go in community, at least context of where folks are coming from to develop understanding and then to lay this foundation of empathy. So it's kind of like my please, please give grace if I mess up or if we have a misunderstanding in conversation, so that you kind of know where it's coming from and I don't just become this data talking head. There's a lot of words on this screen, but basically these are kind of like my I am statements. I've been at AFTA for about a year and a half. I am an artist person. I am a sorority girl, however that feels to you. I love all things girly makeup and hair and changing my look up. I'm a married person, a homeowner, a mom to be and a mom currently. And I finished a doctoral program all in 3 years. Like I've done a lot of things. I have a lot of people in my life that I really love a lot. And then of course, Beyonce is queen. And I always put Beyonce in there because A, I am her #1 fan. And B, maybe not #1, probably #2. And B, do y'all know she had her and Taylor Swift had like the breakout summer? This is like my first time ever in the history of arts and culture heard so much about economic impact and how the economy is boosted by arts and culture, like in just the general news. So I mention those two because yeah, A, they're fantastic, and B, it's kind of been, people are interested in there. There's definitely some space for this conversation. And if we didn't have just 60 minutes together, I would do something similar with you all. I'd ask you your I am statements, and you could tell me all about who you are. But alas, we don't have the time, and you all probably know each other better than I do, so at least you all know each other. So let's talk about the study. A special thank you to the Nevada Arts Council for doing this. This is not an easy thing to do. This study takes a lot of work, but it's all worth it. I always feel like it's kind of like having a baby. It's a lot of work up front, but at the end of the day, it's very, very much worth it. So I just wanted to say from Americans for the Arts to you, Nevada Arts Council, thank you, thank you. AEP6 has been around since the 90s. This is our 6th one, our biggest when it comes to size and scope of the project. So we're in 373 regions across all 50 states, including Puerto Rico for the first time ever. We engaged with small communities, rural to the large population, so like 4,000 population to 4 million. And even in our smallest communities, we've been able to say there is an economic impact. And there, see, we are right here. I always shout out to Nevada County because there we are. But we only did nonprofit arts and culture organizations and municipalities. So and nonprofit, like, so sometimes there'll be like an LLC that kind of like was in there, but they're fiscally sponsored. But basically, we say everybody's coming in as best as we can when it comes to the inclusion of this project, when it comes to the arts and culture organizations, except for-profit industries, so like no Broadway or motion pictures, and then we don't have individual artists included. So they're all vital to the arts and culture economy and ecology. However, they're just beyond the scope of what we can do for this study. So you might ask me, why nonprofits? Why do we do that work with that specific group? It's because government funding and philanthropy dollars are directly tied to those nonprofits generally. And everybody asks, well, what's the return on investment? And so that's kind of why we do that, so that we can prove the return on investment. And you can trust the AEP methodology because it's conservative and reliable. So for the local studies, we've done localized reports because $1 spent in Nevada County is different than it would be in New York or Mexico or wherever. And similarly to that, we just say, I see you, Eliza, we have a majority, like a huge oversampling, and then we have customized reports for each and every community that has an input and output model for that too. I'll pause here. Eliza, what's up?
Yeah, no, I just want to acknowledge one of our attendees said, sad to see there is such a big blank space between San Francisco and the Oregon border, Oregon being right above California. And you're right. And this is one of the reasons we thought it would be so great to share Genna's work and to share the work of Americans for the Arts, because actually, in the same way that Nevada County Arts Council had committed a year ago to doing this study, because it takes a whole year, but you can do it, you can chip it away at it, and you can be very intentional. We really want to see other communities across Northern California. You're right. Look at that space above. Like if you drew a line from where that big red traffic light is, where Nevada County is, all the way across to the western seaboard, there's just like a whole space where the economic impact of the arts isn't being measured. And the more communities that participate, the better the data will become. So anyway, just over back to you. I just wanted to acknowledge that from Pat, because I'm sure that more than just Pat are noticing that.
Yeah, I'm glad you did that. And also, I'm like starting to see, I saw Patrick. Hey, Patrick, from Placer County, another AEP6 partner in the space. And so I always love to see that. I just grateful for the pause. So let's get to the numbers. Again, I'm going to be a data talking head for a little bit. You want to take notes, you totally can, but these are the national stats. These are the findings. They're usually the most exciting part. But basically what we've learned is that we are a $152 billion industry. So that's just arts and culture nonprofits. If you really want to talk about the arts and culture sector, you can use some data from the BEA that says that the sector as a whole, so that's nonprofit, for-profit, and arts education is about a 1.2 trillion with a T $trillion industry. So, but this is for AEP6. I just want, sometimes people need to write notes down and have some information that is beyond what AEP6 is about. So AEP6, $152 billion industry. 73% of that, or 73 billion, is from our organizations. Spending and 78.4 billion is related to the audience's spending. So when we think about it, they employ people. Arts and cultures employ people. They're members of chambers of commerce. They're good business citizens when we talk about arts and culture and business and being an industry that has an economic impact. And then more so, creating jobs. 2.6 million jobs are supported by arts and culture, which is amazing. And that's not just the artist, right? We've been able to see that it's the builders, plumbers, accountants, printers, many different industries that are supported through arts and culture. And what we also learned is, and I might come back to this as the slides go on, but is that the jobs that we provide, unlike other industries, are mostly localized. Like you can't ship out some of the things that we do to overseas or in different communities. They're really localized jobs that are provided into the community. And so that's a really, really awesome thing. When it comes to government impact, when I say nonprofit, you're like, what do you mean government revenue? They're a nonprofit. They don't have to pay taxes. But there is still $29 billion of revenue that is coming back to the government. And that is through a lot of different ways. But one of the ways is like, you have to pay your employees. So payroll, they have to pay taxes. So a very small investment for a really large return is what we like to coin when we start talking about that government impact. Because it doesn't give it, the assumption is it doesn't give back, but it totally does. On a national scale, I didn't include the volunteer hours when it comes to that big old dollar amount, that 152 basically billion dollar industry. Because if we added the volunteerism, even though we know that this data is snapshot in time, it's 2022. Things might look a little bit different now as 2023, as funding starts to change, as the landscape starts to change. So just naming that as a snapshot in time, that the value of a volunteer across the United States right now, due to, this is from the independent sector, so this is their research, it's $31.80. That's how much a volunteer makes per hour. So across the country, there was on average about 3,775. What is that number? That's a big number. Let me just make sure I'm not like misquoting it or anything. Lots of volunteers, lots of hours. This is where we're going to go. Brrr, the drum roll, please. That's an additional $3.6 million of value when it comes to the national perspective. Again, these are national numbers. These are averages that we're displaying here. But that's kind of, if you added those together, 3.6 million to the 152, again, big old economic impact there. But I'd love to break it down even further. Outside of the cost of admission, people spent $38.46 outside of the cost of admission. So whether it be a free event or, you know, $100 ticket to the ballet, folks are still spending money. And what's interesting here is that like a lot of industries, arts have a measurable impact, but unlike a lot of industries, that economic impact touches so many different businesses. So that's including like local hotels and transportation and retail stores. And so when you're looking at this big old pie chart, think of that. And then I also want you to look at, like, for example, lodging. If you find a hotel for $5, I would not stay there. Be mindful of that. So just want to be clear that these are just averages, people. When you surveyed 224,677 people across the nation, not everybody has those kinds of expenses. So that's why we want to say there are some averages here. And then folks ask me all the time, when you say these are kind of self-explanatory: shopping and clothes, groceries, right? Childcare. But other, what is other? My favorite story that was shared with me was from a farmer in Wisconsin paid someone $60 to milk his cow for the evening so that he could go to the theater. So those are the kinds of things that people are doing to get into arts and culture spaces, which is like, I don't know, you'd be surprised about how many other spaces, especially with, yeah, there's so many different things that are filled in. Husbands being pulled to come to these events and paying different things. Anyways, the other category gets really funny as they go. And the cool thing about AAP6 is that we ask for zip code information. The reason we do that is to further advocate around tourism and to build out that discussion about the dollars that we as arts and culture industry, bring into community. So on average, we're at 70% local, 30% non-local, which is really good. But let's talk about what the spending is like when it comes to local and non-local attendees. Local attendees are spending about $30. Great, fantastic. 77% of non-local attendees, so non-local attendees are spending $60.57. 77% said this arts and cultural event was the primary reason that they came to this place. That's huge. 77% are coming to your regions, your areas, for arts and culture. And guess what? Those 77% of people are spending about $60 on average. And that doesn't even include the cost of a hotel. If folks are spending the night, and we only count one night, because again, like I said, we have a very conservative approach to the project, and perhaps they go see their family for the second night, or they go to a sports event. We want to be really conservative, but most people stay for the arts event. Instead of that $60 number, bump that up to $204 on average. And we saw that 13%, almost 14% of the people, so that's almost half of the people who said that they were non-locals, spent that. That was their average. That's heads and beds. Those hotel tax, heads and beds, cheeks and seats, derrieres and cafe chairs, whichever one you want to hear. That is where the data is sending us, right? And is telling us to go, that people are doing. So that's fantastic. That's amazing. That's a lot of money. Almost done the data section, y'all. Woo! Buckle in. All right, so you didn't participate in AAP6. Eliza just said there was like a big chasm between folks who participated and who didn't. That doesn't mean that you can't find your economic impact. The tricky part is that it's not as customized and there are not as many tools that you can use, but we want everybody to be able to advocate. We're not a national organization. We want everybody to be advocating for arts and culture. So if you want to play around with how your economic impact is, please do scan the QR code that's on the screen. There's also a customized calculator in each of the people who participated. So if you go online, I'll show you in a few minutes. You'll be able to see each of the people who did participate in California and see if you can get close to theirs, because theirs are slightly more customized based on what their findings are. So play around with that, little fun, little interaction here. And let's then go into the arts and culture social impact part of this. The benefit with AEP6 is that we also, at the same time in July, we did a public opinion poll with Ipsos. I think they're the second largest public opinion poll organization in the country. And we surveyed over 3,000 Americans. We say general Americans, not arts and culture people, because people are like, all right, Genna, you have all of this data. You're about to show me all of these things, but you kind of like preaching to the choir. Like, these are arts and culture people. They're coming to arts works. Like, they already know, like, they're kind of predisposed to like liking the arts and feeling these things. But when you ask the general public, these are art, it's empathy and understanding. They're building it, and that's not arts people, that's general public. 72% of people agree that arts and culture is the place where you can have shared experience with people that are different than you. 63% of people across the nation, non-arts people, say that it helps them build a better understanding of their community. So what we've done with AEP6 is we've been able to tell the arts and culture nonprofit story, but also the global advocacy story for the arts from a general American perspective. We also were able to offer this study in 25 languages, which most people preferred English, but again, for the goal of inclusion, when you walk in the door and you have something that is in a language that somebody feels is their home language, is their language that they know the best, that wall just comes down, and that connectivity that the general public was talking about is like, boom, here we are, we're ready to start. So I just wanted to say that was a feature of AEP6, and I know that that's probably not going to go away for the next one. We also talked about, we kind of led with these 4 pillars of engagement when it comes to social impact. One was like, this is a pillar. We would feel a great sense of loss, inspiring a sense of pride, and preserve for future generations. All of those kinds of quotes or sort of qualitative approach to the research helps us tell the data story. So if you are saying that we are $152 billion industry, and 81% of people think that it's a pillar in their community, a government official might be like, okay, I guess I can't just ignore this. So that's why we put these in here, is because we know that social impact is a huge part of telling a story. Qualitative research is a huge part of telling a data story. But additionally, because it's just really cool. And this time, AEP6 is the first time that we have ever been able to start research with bringing in a community that has been marginalized in the past. So like I said, we've been around since the 90s doing these studies, right? And in the past, what we've done is asked our partners to go out and collect surveys. Usually it's like on average about 800 surveys. That's a lot of surveys. And so folks asked, how did you do it back in the day, a couple years ago? We would say, go to your big old economic drivers and get those surveys as quickly as you can. And that, unfortunately, marginalized communities that didn't have the size. And most of the time, those organizations that didn't have the size were BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color. Alana, I'll say BIPOC and Alana often interchangeably, and I just want to make sure everybody has the acronym together. So BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. Alana is African, Latin, Asian, Arab, and Native American, so just so that we have the same language. we are now able to gather data. We've gathered data from those organizations, those serving organizations or led by organizations, so that we could be able to amplify and advocate similarly to how we've been doing everybody else for the past 30 years, which is a really, really good thing. And so when you see attendees at BIPOC events, notice that we're not talking about BIPOC people. We're talking about those arts and culture organizations. We're talking about attendees. So they could be everybody. Anybody can come and attend a BIPOC and Alana serving organization or event. So I just want to make sure those kinds of things are really, really clear when it comes to the BIPOC and Alana events, surveys. Same survey, just being able to have that baseline data for that engagement and building relationships around that was really a good step forward for AEP 6. And what you can see here is that the findings are pretty same. They're pretty much similar. And why is that important, right? Like, Genna, why are you showing me this? First of all, well, we want to talk about the equity and inclusion piece of it. And third of all, it is important to have these kinds of conversations because when we look at data coming, so similar social impact, and I also, last thing I want to say about this, you'll always see BIPOC events versus all events. We do that on purpose. We don't do BIPOC events versus non-BIPOC events because that could be really harmful. So if you have any questions about that, just let me know, because that's just the way that we've done it this time, so that we don't create more harm and more space in spaces that are not good. And then also we don't go into like, you know, the folks who represent all of the acronym and that kind of spending comparison. We don't do it based on racial or ethnic categories on purpose. Because the sample size would be really too small for us to do any kind of real analysis around those audience spaces. So those are all of the like data-y things and definitions. But let's talk about the spending, because like I said, we're an economic impact survey first. The spending's the same too, y'all. Spoiler alert, they're the same. The social impact and the spending are pretty much similar. And so why is this important? Because conversations need to be had now to talk about you know, some of the practices that we have, some of those, you know, unintentional, unconscious practices that we have. So we did a survey in 2019, and I mean Americans for the Arts, and we found that some of the local arts agencies that are grant-making organizations are giving 73% of the dollars awarded to the largest 16% of local arts organizations. So 73% of the dollars is going to this piece of the pie. And so wanted to look into that more and have a broader conversation. And these kinds of numbers help us do that. The second thing, when 2020 or around 2020, around 2020, we had a survey out about reporting financial resources and the return to in-person programming. And we noticed that the ability to have those resources, non-BIPOC organizations were 55% more ready to return versus the BIPOC organizations that were at 38% because there was a lack of those resources. So again, when we're looking at those numbers, we can start having conversations like, well, why? Why is the investment so different when there's a lot of similarities in the spending? And then we don't even want to get into the fact that, like, you know, disposable income. Sometimes in different households, things look different. And we're able to do more or do less, or that 38.29 looks like some choices, right? Like I said, I was trying to go to the Beyonce concert this summer, and me, myself, I was like, okay, daycare or Beyonce? I don't know which one. But anyways, let's just talk. I mean, so again, we have these findings so that we can have these kinds of conversations, so that we can bring people in to the arts and culture ecology and build a wider network of folks who can advocate. All right. almost done, almost ready for questions. You might ask me, well, Genna, how are we doing this? And AEP 6 is over. So like what next, right? So this is how we're doing it. We've offered a couple of resources to the people who participated in the study. And of course, to everyone, actually, it's live on the internet. So anybody can have some of these resources about how to engage with community. And folks might say, you know, when I recommend when it comes to engaging with your community, tapping into existing networks or creating new partnerships, you might be like, well, I don't have partnerships. I don't even know where to start. And we have another resource that helps us go directly to the source to find those organizations that we were talking about. We have a resource there to tell you, give you kind of like some activation points of how to get there. And then you might ask, well, Genna, this feels like a big old chunk of a big old mountain. And it is. And it is. So we've offered a digital workbook that is, I feel like this is a workbook in practice where we are giving some tools, prompts, challenges to help us get through some of those larger societal, systemic, purse string challenges that I know a lot of folks in the local arts agency space, you know, contend with, especially when we're trying to do some equity practices and we don't have the pie, you know, sometimes the pie can't get bigger, right? So let's talk about those. That's what this is about, is trying to continue those kinds of conversations, get into the community the right way, and continue to build from there. And it doesn't stop with AEP 6. It's called the AEP workbook, but it doesn't stop. We are also partnering with, which gives me to my almost final slide, other national partners who do this work. And I'm going to start with Race Forward, and then I'll go from there. But Race Forward is an organization that is about race and social justice. And over the next 3 years, Americans for the Arts and all of our arts and culture partners for AEP 6 have the opportunity to partner with their local jurisdictions on building out programming. So it's not just, you know, sometimes when you step in a room by yourself and you're trying to make this connection, people are like, no, I don't know you. But hopefully when we can partner with these other organizations and when we can partner and make some like national movements, you know, more folks will kind of jump on the train and get us across the nation in a really positive way. But started with Race Forward to kind of illustrate the direction that we're going when it comes to the equity stuff, because some folks are like, oh, this is really, research is transactional. Y'all gonna do more harm than good by being like, all right, check, we got this BIPOC information, we're good. But no, that's not the case at all. But we also have so many different partners. And the reason why we have these national partners is because these logos represent folks who support and affirm the research. And so when you go into rooms to try to advocate for with other people, so like, for example, your mayor, and be like, hey, arts and culture, and they're like, and I'm like, you could be like, hey, but you know, the U.S. Conference of Mayors supports this research. They validate this research. So like, what's up with you? And similarly to some of those other organizations here, like NACO and National Conference of State Legislators. I just went to their conference this week to talk about arts and culture across the country. So these are, you know, you got your mayors, you got your city managers, your business leaders with the conference board, and independent sectors, which is private funders, tourism. We got anybody you can think about that would be a help in this kinds of conversation and in this kind of advocacy work. We generally have actors equity. So we have some in independent venue associations. So we have some of those like niche affinity spaces where they're really in those arts and culture spaces. And then we also have some BIPOC and Alana organizations represented here. So again, you can go in community and say like, okay, we are here. We know that we are by ourselves in this moment, but there's a greater group of people who might not look like I do right in this moment, but who really are supportive of this research, even though I am not feeling like I'm the one to have this conversation. Tons and tons of partnerships around that kind of work. And that's why we have them, so that we can support that advocacy work. Tons of stuff that you can do. I put our website back up here, but this is like preaching to the attend arts. Y'all know that. Advocate. You all know that too. And you can also join the Arts Action Fund. So I'd love to have some questions. I always drop my email in here. My colleague, boss, told me, I was giving out my number. He's like, you can't give out your number to people. Like, you can't just do that because you're going to be crazy. So the email is the best way to reach me. But if you email me, I'll call you because I prefer it. So anyways, special thank you to Eliza Michael Lynn, Sophia, Gianna, for the work that you all are doing, Patrick, who's also a member on the call here, and I'd love to have some questions.
Yeah, guys, you're welcome to take off your mute. Genna, thank you so much for providing such amazing information. It's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? Does anyone have questions for Genna? We want you to completely put her on the spot and challenge her in every way possible, and then I'll come for the rescue.
Oh, I see some questions in the chat. Sorry, I was ignoring the chat.
Let's just have a look.
Yeah, there was, how do we get to provide data in the future?
Who was that?
Pat Vinton?
Pat, do you want to sort of flush out that question a little bit? What do you mean by how do we get to provide data in the future? Do you mean participate as a partner with Americans for the Arts in your community to measure the economic and social impact? Is that what you mean?
I'm not sure. I'm just trying to figure out how we can fill in that big space in the map.
Right. Well, maybe I can help a little bit there, Genna, if I might, and especially because Patrick Storm is here from Placer County Arts Council. So Nevada County and Placer County are next to each other. And unbeknownst to each other, we have happily discovered that each one of us has participated with arts and economic prosperity this year. That means that a year ago, Patrick signed up for his county to measure the economic impact of the arts and the social impact of the arts. And I did the same for Nevada County, and here we are together. You've just seen the national findings, but Patrick has access to all the data, all the most current data on the economic and social impacts of the arts for Placer, just as I do for Nevada. And what I know, we'd probably love to see more counties taking this on. So last night I sent an email to all our fellow county arts councils across the northern part of California to say, hey, jump on board and why don't you get involved next time around? You know, 4 years from now, we're going to start gathering data in our communities. So what you might do, Pat, is speak to, just remind me which county you're from. Is it?
I'm in BIPOC, so it's Leslie Castellano and Jemima Ha.
Exactly. So one or other of them, wouldn't it be great if one or other of them would just start preparing to be part of this survey next time it comes around? So it's every 5 years, but what that really means from the moment that the study results come out, which is now, because they're fresh off you have another 4 years before you start gathering the data again, and it takes about a year. And there are 2 parts, and one part is surveying all the organizations, and the other part is surveying all your audiences. But it also can be done, it doesn't need to be done county by county, like a city could take this on, for example. So the city of Eureka could take this on. In fact, Leslie would be a great person to talk to because she's on city council. So speak with, local leaders.
Yes, I will. I mean, we want to get county-wide data because it's a very spread out county. I mean, we have
agree.
5,000 people in a huge county.
Well, it's also the most amazing cultural planning tool, because the first thing you have to do is know your assets, know what your strengths are. So you have to make a list of all the people that you're going to survey, and Americans for the Arts ultimately asks for that list with the names of the executive directors and the contact information. And then, and so really it's a partnership between, oneself and Americans for the Arts. But it's such a fabulous, it's a treasure for the community. Gretchen, I don't suppose you could, I know you can't be on video, but could you unmute yourself and just talk about your experience as Gretchen Bond is executive director of one of our most important cultural venues here and agencies. And I know that she actually came from a background of finance and then became executive director of an arts organization. But Gretchen, speak to how you use this, even though it's county data. How do you use it locally for your organization?
Yeah, so it's been super helpful for us. What I've done is I haven't done it since the pandemic, but I did take the data that we got, which were the multipliers for the different, the different multipliers that we got from the Americans for the Arts. And I actually applied it to our organization and was able to demonstrate how much economic impact our individual organization had on jobs, on local taxes, on county taxes, on I'm trying to think of what the other household income. There were a bunch of different categories, but it's really quite remarkable. I mean, the Foundry is not a huge organization, but our economic impact was over $6 million a year, and which was quite eye-opening for me. And then also really important when I'm talking to like our city and our county, and even donors who are interested not only in the health of our organization, but also how they go about supporting us. And for them to see that we actually make this huge difference in the community is super helpful. So I did it for our organization for 2018, 2019, and then 2022. But I really want to do it for 2020 because I want to show what happened in 2020 and 2021. It's just a lot of figuring. So it's not been on the top of my list, but I think it's going to be quite shocking to see, how everybody knows, but it's like anecdotal stuff is one thing, but knowing what impact you have on lodging and just employment, how many people you employ, and household income. So I thought it was really helpful. And I don't know, I think don't you have to pay to have the study done?
Yes. So I'm just trying to remember, Genna, how much does it cost?
That's a good question. So I don't know exactly how much it costs. I don't want to give today's price may not be tomorrow's price, is why I don't want to say it out loud. But I should say that no one has yet been turned away because of a pricing sort of challenge, right? We find creative ways to try to work with everybody to get everybody in as best we can, especially when it comes to I saw another comment in there with the rural perspective, especially if there isn't the funding to do so. That's the benefit of being like a statewide partner. I don't think California has been a statewide partner. I know that they weren't this year, but I'm not sure if they've been before. But there's a level of cost sharing that comes along with that too. So again, we try to make it work so that it's not a huge lift, but there is a cost. Yes.
Right. Well, I was, the only reason I asked that was because I wanted to point out that it does cost money, but also it's important. Like, it's really valuable data. So it's, even if there are smaller, I mean, we're not a big county. Even if there are smaller, more rural counties, they have time to plan, like Eliza said, put the assets together for the next round. And then, also to be able to advocate with their arts organizations of the importance of it, because I thought it was really valuable information. Anyway, Thanks. I think I talked long enough.
That's great. And I just want to go back to Pat. Pat, you are a Clark Historical Museum board member, Delata International board chair, and Eureka Cultural District organizing committee member. That's amazing. You would so benefit from, so already as a California cultural district, and we know this because we've got 2 in our county, we know that in order to be a cultural district, we have to show the state that we know that we have a whole inventory of our cultural assets, like who are the organizations and the collectives and the galleries and all the amazing spaces and people, et cetera, et cetera. So you already have done half the work just being a cultural district. So now you probably just need to tidy that up a little bit, update it, ready for the next time AAP, Americans for the Arts, is ready, and you'd be literally there already. So I want
to expand it beyond Eureka. So
yeah. No, I agree. I think it's great for communities because it kind of turns you from having an anecdotal understanding who and what you are within a county to really knowing, like, where are, and that's why it makes such a great cultural planning tool. So we love it. It cost us, I think it cost us about between 6,000 and 8,000, because there are little add-ons that you can choose. But you know, the baseline was about 6, but then of course it cost us a lot of time and staff time, and of course volunteer time. So you just need to budget for it. People love this stuff. Go to your city, you know, or if you're doing it across your whole county, talk to every single city council or town council and maybe get them to share, you know, match some of it so that it's not so painful. That's how we did it the first time around. And then this time around, we just like clenched our teeth and just went for it and paid it over. Americans for the Arts let us pay it over several months. And, you know, so it was great. Any other questions? Well, for those of you who are calling in from Nevada County, like Alexis and Mira and Gretchen, you know that we're just about to release the full report on Nevada County specifically, just as Patrick will be in the new year with Placer. And we're both kind of holding back on the big reveal, which is very exciting. One of the reasons we wanted to take slightly longer with it is because we're gathering a ton of local quotes from local leaders. And these quotes will be sprinkled throughout the report. So it's not just such a high level national thing, but it actually has real meaning for every single reader of it. And we were very careful, very sure to make sure that we had quotes that spoke to the rigorous methodology of the report. For example, Patrick, I'd be very happy to share my quotes with you so that you can plagiarize them like mad and then ascribe them to local leaders. But if just for the future, if anyone wants to do this, they're so welcome. I'm sure Patrick wouldn't mind, and I certainly wouldn't mind. Just come to us and ask for hot tips, and we'll be here to help you. Agatha, you're calling in from Shasta today, and I know that Nancy from Shasta, the ED for Shasta County Arts Council, was very interested in doing this study. Am I right? Or are you just an AI bot today? No, you're there. I can see you.
We have done some very, excuse me, rudimentary search ourselves a couple of years back when talking to our city council members about TOT tax use. So we've brought together some of the larger players from just the downtown, specifically within the cultural district, arts organizations and arts venues, to try and shake that data together. And I think this is going to be a great tool for us to do a far more in-depth study and also engage the community members, because that is going to tell us just how the community actually participates, rather than what was mentioned before, the preaching to the choir situation.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's just the most amazing. If you're forced to go out, you know, rain or shine, every season, every kind of event, and actually talk with people, talk with your constituents and your audience members. It's really fabulous as an engagement tool. This last year, I'm kind of smiling at Michaelin, because she was the one that was like out there interviewing people at all our events, and I was just, you know, like, come on, we got to get more. And she was just amazing. But as a result, like, Nevada County everyone said, my God, Nevada County Arts Council's everywhere this year. You know, that's amazing, you guys. So we want to see that across the whole of Northern California. Wouldn't that just be great? I'm just going to post
one question in the chat that we didn't get to from Troy.
Yes, sorry.
No worries. About benchmarks. Or Troy, if you want to come off mute and voice your question.
Hey there, Troy from Truckee. So I'll ask my question and give a little context how it relates to us. So the question is, does Americans for the Arts provide broad picture benchmarks for other industries so that we can see how the economic impact for art and culture compares to some of the other industries? here in Truckee, so I'm just thinking large swaths, but also to be able to see it regionally. So for us in Truckee, being near North Lake Tahoe, the ski industry is a really big driver. And I would imagine that the study is dispelling a lot of assumptions about how impactful arts and culture is, you know, both regionally, but also locally. And so, you know, for example, one of the things we would often hear is, well, people are coming to our area to ski, but they might also go out and participate in art and cultural events. So the ski industry would be the driver, and the art and culture would be an add-on. But the reality is that it might be equal, or it might be that the art and culture is the larger driver, and you know the other industry is benefiting from it. So just kind of wondering if there's, you know, some big swath comparisons that we can see.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's so funny. I was just in Tennessee, or Nashville, Monday and Tuesday. And somebody from Chattanooga, one of our partners from Chattanooga, Tennessee, said that he did exactly that. So the short quick answer is that we as Americans for the Arts cannot do that level of localized comparison, but we do encourage the local partners, once they get their data, to do some sleuthing around to seeing where you can find. And they winded up finding because they're like, they invest in these sports arenas, they have all of this stuff, and they're actually, the arts and culture was a larger economic impact than the actual sports industry there. So that was a huge win for them, but we can't do it from a local level. We do, however, work with a service called Implan. That's the service that we do for our input-output analysis. And we are working towards a study coming soon, hopefully, fingers crossed, that will help us tell us, so for example, with that restaurant, retail, shopping, groceries, how much of the arts and culture impact those sectors that are already sort of a part of our study. So if you're interested in learning that, so like, you know, for example, restaurants, like how much of their billions and millions of dollars is from arts and culture audiences. So we're trying to work to see if we can get some of that data. But when it comes to the localized sports and other comparisons, we don't have that yet. But every time AEPs come out, we always have something new, different, bigger, better. So I don't know what's going to happen for AEP 7, but I'm really excited to see how that grows and shifts. But that's a great question on comparisons. And I promised Gianna that I would share this one thing as well. If you allow me, if you'll indulge me for just 1 minute. Someone asked about comparison to other communities or rural versus urban sort of comparisons. And I said, we don't really do that. We don't really do rural versus urban because we're a national organization and we don't necessarily want to have people out here kind of like, you know, all chasing the same stick. But what we do is we have all of the data tables. Now, if you really want to nerd out, and don't judge all of the tabs, I have too many tabs. If you really want to nerd out and find out more, these are 3,000 pages of the data tables across the country about basically the impacts in their community. So if you wanted to compare, you know, North Carolina to Oregon, you can do that in those data tables. So, but it is you know, it's going to take some folks to do that, but and some time. But I just wanted to share that even though we don't do some of those comparisons similar to sports or between areas, we do offer ways that you can do that. It just takes a little bit more time if you're really wanting to do that.
Genna, I'm so excited because I know that you're coming here to Nevada County in April. And we also know that Randy Cohen, who's VP of Research and Policy at American for the Arts, is going to be visiting Placer County. And I'm pretty sure Patrick feels the same way as I do, that in either one of those events, we'd so welcome, you know, we'll be hosting a great big thing that says, come and listen to Genna, come and listen to Randy speak to these numbers locally. So for those of you local folks on this call, please join us then. We'll be letting you know. Genna, you are amazing. I'm really pleased that with the questions that we've had today. Troy, I seriously feel like this is a piece. Troy represents Truckee Arts Alliance and Truckee Cultural District up in the High Sierra, as you can see. He's probably just come down from a mountain, having rescued an entire skiing party, as well as being an artist. Anyway, Troy, let's figure this out. Like, let's compare ourselves to the construction industry. Let's compare ourselves to hospitality, because we know with climate change up in the High Sierra that we need to wean ourselves off a dependency in snow-based tourism, right? So all this, every single community is going to have a different narrative and a different story, a different reason why this is important. Guys, you've been great to be with. And Genna, you're amazing, but you know this.
Thank you all. I agree. Echo.
And Genna, would it be possible to share your slides with folks if you would just ping them to us afterwards?
Yeah, I just have to take all of my like, don't say this or please say this kind of notes out of there. But yes.
Great. All right. Well, we'll share them with everyone. And again, we're totally available to ask any follow-up